Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4 is due for release in the autumn, and it looks to be riding the Korean wave. But is it heading for controversy? Let's have a look. You can see here, these are some of the first pictures we've got from the game. And what we know about it so far is that it is set in the Korean Peninsula. Let's find out a little bit more then with Laura Kress, who covers gaming here at the BBC. Laura, it's great to be able to talk to you. What do we know so far?
Well, that's right. As you said, although we have seen in Call of Duty, Korea has featured a little bit before as a location, this is the first Call of Duty to primarily feature it. And what we know from this trailer is you play partly as young South Korean soldiers. They're facing live combat for the first time. In the trailer, we saw that there's this kind of routine patrol that's happening in Korea when suddenly a missile strikes, and it follows this idea of a North Korea full-scale invasion, and you follow these soldiers in their stories. Now, there's other settings in the game, but as I said, it's set in Korea for the most part.
And what's generally being said about that? Is it controversial?
Well, I think for a lot of people discussing this online, it really depends on how this is going to be handled. A lot of people saying, you know, is this just going to turn what is a still unresolved war into just entertainment, or is it actually bringing something that's happening in real life to attention to people that might not be aware of it and highlighting it? There was a lot of people, in fact, online from Korea saying that the fact that this big global blockbuster IP, you know, Call of Duty, it's a massive, massive franchise. The fact that it has Korean script, a Korean script logo, is quite a symbolic moment, actually. Some people are very excited that it's going to be featuring Korean life, but other people just wondering about that accuracy. You know, is it reducing what is obviously a very complex history to action movie stereotypes? Is it going to trivialize that history?
Yes, it was interesting actually. I was speaking to some of our colleagues in Seoul earlier, and they were saying there is a lot of excitement around it. And actually there has been South Korean drama, films, entertainment that have fictionalized war with North Korea before as well. So that in itself isn't an alien concept. So in terms of Call of Duty itself, as a franchise, as a brand, it's not adverse to controversy. Its previous iterations have raised questions as well.
Yeah, that is correct, particularly with this Modern Warfare franchise. There's a couple of studios that now develop the Call of Duty franchise, and Infinity Ward, the developers behind the Modern Warfare side of it, that, you know, they aren't adverse to controversy. It's fair to say they had this mission No Russian, which saw players optionally have to shoot civilians in Moscow. There was another one in 2022 where there was a drone strike mission that drew some parallels to the real world assassination of an Iranian general. So they certainly do feature quite real world topics because it, you know, as by the title, Modern Warfare.
So what have the makers been saying then about Modern Warfare 4?
So they have said, Infinity Ward, they said they wanted to tell a very grounded story from the perspective of ordinary South Korean soldiers. And I think a lot of people online have, you know, been enjoying the fact that they seem to be doing that from an ordinary perspective. And they've also said they did consult with people with ties to the region while developing the campaign. They said they've been speaking to advisors, military people that have served in that area. So at least from that perspective, it does sound like they are trying to get that accuracy that people are asking for. Of course, we can only go off the trailer at the moment and wait to see when the full game comes out in October.
Yes. Interesting as well, Laura, that actually if you look at some of the other successful shooter games of recent times, there has been a general trend of steering away from geopolitics.
Yes, I suppose that is right in the fact that, you know, for example, if we look at something like Battlefield more recently, that had sort of more fictional military groups. It wasn't looking at identifiable countries. So in a way, you know, Modern Warfare 4, even though it does tend to go for that real life depiction, it's interesting it has decided to move back towards that more recognizable geopolitical tension. Of course, you could argue perhaps that this could be perceived as a safer option when you look at what's happening in the world today for global audiences than any other real world conflict.
Okay, so you mentioned it's due out in October, but there are also some changes for player modes, its functionality, and also the consoles that you'll be able to play it on.
Yeah, so I mean, in a way, while we're all talking about this setting, when it actually comes out, what might make or break this game is the multiplayer mode, because that is a massive thing for Call of Duty. It's what really the games ride or die on. And Infinity Ward, they're overhauling movement in the game. They're also doing a big refresh of this thing called DMZ, which is the sort of extraction style mode that pits people against AI enemies and other players. So it is normally driven by this success. So they're really trying to overhaul it. They're saying that this is one of the biggest gameplay changes they've done in quite a long time. So while this kind of Korean setting maybe is grabbing the headlines now, it'd be interesting to see when the game comes out. And as you say, it's moving away from that last generation hardware. It's not coming out now on PlayStation 4, Xbox One entirely. They're moving towards just PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, PC, Nintendo Switch 2. So it's all going to be out on the latest hardware. And it'll be interesting just to see these changes that they make, how that fits in with what they hope for.
Well, Laura, you've been writing all about this, haven't you? So we can read a little bit more soon?
Yes, you can indeed, yeah.
On the BBC News website. Thank you very much.